So this time we don't have a picture to work with. We're just going to work with the information. So just like with the picture, when I know what the root is, I can use that to figure out what the factor is. So if the root is 5, what that means is that we had something that ended up with x equals 5. So to get the factor, I'm just going to add 5 to both sides of this, or subtract 5 to both sides from this equation. So what I end up with is a factor of x minus 5. So there's one of my factors. I have three more roots. I have a root of something that ended up with x equals 0. That would lead, or x equals -2. That's going to lead us to a factor, I'll put these in parentheses, of x plus 2. I have a root that is x equals 1. That's going to lead to a factor of x minus 1. And then finally, I have a root that is x equals 0. Well, guys, that just leads to, if we add 0 to both sides, we get 0, or x plus 0, which is just x. But there's a bounce here, and that's important. So I know that it has to be an even power. I'm going to start with my lowest power and see how that works. Now here's what I also can use to determine if I need that to be a bigger number than 2. That's my lowest even number. If I need that to be maybe 4, 6, or 8, that'll be communicated to me through the degree. So since my degree is 5, look, if I were to multiply these all together right now, I'm going to have x squared times x times x times x. That's going to give me an x to the 5th. So that's my highest power would end up being 5 with just these factors. So that's good. Now the second part of this is actually writing the equation. So we know it's going to end up being y equals, don't know what our stretch factor is, so we put that a in to hold the place of the stretch factor. And then I'm just going to put all of my factors in that I just figured out. So x minus 5, x plus 2, x minus 1, and then x squared. A lot of times you'll see that x squared written out in front. We can do that when we're done. The second piece of information that's really important here is this point. This gives us an x and a y that we can actually put into our equation to see what our stretch factor is going to end up being. So I'm going to put -48 in for y, and then I've got the rest of my equation just as is. Okay, a times, and then instead of x, I'm going to put in 2. So I'll have 2, and then 2 minus 5, and then 2 plus 2, and then 2 minus 1, and then 2 squared. Put a little multiplication symbol there. All right, and now it's just a matter of solving this equation for a. So I've got a little bit of evaluating to do, and then I should be able to solve it. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've got -48 equals a times, all right, 2 minus 5, that's -3, times 2 plus 2, that's 4, times 2 minus 1, that's 1, times 2 squared, which is 4. So I get -48 equals, let's see, that's going to be -12 times 4, that's -48. So I really have -48 equals -48a, which if we divide both sides by -48, we get a equals 1. So really this equation was pretty close. All we have to do is just make that a 1. So what my equation ends up being is 1. And then you're going to have, I like to put the x squared, that monomial term, out in front, but if you leave it in the back, it doesn't matter. It's fine either way. But you get this equation. And then that's the equation for that polynomial.